and what are your projections of how media companies would fare moving forward? And what do you think is the future of the media?
I think
it's a lot of questions in one.
Yeah. I think for the media, this has given room for remote work, especially for a lot of organizations who were foot dragging on whether to allow their workers to work remotely or not. This is a great opportunity. And the last two months or thereabout has been some kind of experiment for a lot of media houses. And a lot of media houses or media bosses or media executives will tell you that it's worked beautifully well. People are still consuming information a lot more than I'm sure when there were no restrictions, or when there was no lockdown. So for media going forward, I envisage a situation where a lot of media houses will give leeway or wiggle room for their journalists to work remotely. That's to work from home, as long as you meet basic KPIs or targets. It's something. Yeah, and I also envisage a situation where you just have to buy data and probably pay your journalists petrol allowance, especially because we live in a country where the power situation is still very, very bad. So I think going forward, that would be the future of media, because media is going digital. Even the traditional media houses are doing a lot of digital stuff. So why drive to the office, or why spend many hours in traffic when you can work from a car park, or you can work from home, or you can work from an eatery? So this is a great opportunity for media to innovate and pay less in terms of rent. Convert that money you want to use to pay for rent into purchasing data and probably petrol allowance for your staff, and you're good to go. That's the future, not just for media. I think it's good for a lot of organizations, and remote work probably will be the new normal for a lot of organizations, not just in Nigeria, but across the world going forward.
Great. I love how you talked about companies now innovating, and you also mentioned data and data allowances, petroleum allowances for a lot of companies. So a lot of businesses have been talking about reducing costs. So I feel one of the most used words should be right now for businesses would be pay cuts, layoffs, and all of that. So, and now there's the conversation about data allowances and petrol allowances. So a few weeks ago, I read a particular report by, I think, Phillips Consulting, and it says 61% of staff members have struggled with work delivery because of data issues and electricity issues. So I'm thinking, like, for a lot of businesses who were on lockdown for the longest time, and now telling their staff members to come back to work, because you see the roads in Lagos, the traffic in Lagos, they are back. Companies not taking initiative to still make work more flexible. What are your thoughts about that? Because I had a conversation with a particular person who has a company, and said that the work from home doesn't work for his business model. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, there are still going to be a lot of companies where working remotely or working from home will not work, and we have to understand that. I made my comments or remarks in the light of the fact that there are still some companies that can afford to do that. For example, I do not think that you need all the staff in the bank. Some staff can afford to work remotely. I do not think that for a lot of blue chip organizations in Lagos, you need to physically be at the office. For a lot of PRO firms, you can work remotely. For a lot of consultants, you can allow your staff to work remotely. I think that works. For companies, I can understand that there are some shops or some outlets or some kind of business concerns where you have to physically be there, that's still going to be a problem. I mean, you can relax the rules in terms of when you resume and when you go back home. But for media, for PR consultants or media consultants, for certain categories of workers in a bank, I think now is the time to allow people to work remotely, because especially for a city like Lagos, where there's always traffic, I do not think that we all have to be on the road at 6 a.m. and start heading back at 5 in Lagos, where there's a lot of chaos. So probably this is an opportunity for Lagosians, for a lot of bosses in companies in Lagos to sit back and begin to ask themselves certain questions. Do I need all my staff in the office at the same time? Probably not. Do I need certain categories of staff to work remotely? Probably yes. Because the future of work, Desmond, whether we like it or not, the future of work, especially in cosmopolitan cities and densely populated cities like Lagos, is remote. Is remote work. That's the future of work. Because that way, you save time, you save energy. Your employees are not spending productive time in traffic. And probably they are going to give you better results or better turnout at the end of the month, at the end of the day. So why don't you experiment with it? The problem is that there are a lot of bosses in Lagos who just want to see you as an employee because they are paying you a salary, but it's not necessary. So this is the time for us to actually realize that in a digital world, and an increasingly digital world like what we have today, you don't need all your employees to be physically present in a space at a particular point in time.
You said the future of work is remote work. But then, and let's also talk about some of the things, some of the other sectors that you feel will change. So while a lot of people are losing jobs, a lot of conversation has been about opportunities opening up in different sectors. I remember having a conversation with a particular CEO, the CEO of Red for Africa, who said that this is a time for people to innovate and start off their own companies even, because there are lots of things that there are lots of opportunities opening up for people. So what are your thoughts about that? What are some of these sectors that you feel these opportunities are opening up in?
Yeah, I think for creatives, this is a good opportunity. For example, if you are if you have learned how to code, or you're someone who codes, this is a beautiful opportunity to start your own thing. If you have some kind of data skills, or you are very good with the computer in a way that you provide solutions, software solutions to companies, this is a big opportunity for you. You can begin to pitch remotely to these companies and say, I can do this. And before you know, you are getting jobs just from sitting on your bed or in the sitting room. So this has been, I know a lot of creatives, like creatives and painters, artists, who are getting a lot of demands at this time, because the fact that people are working remotely also means that they want some kind of solutions or they want some kind of entertainment. So if you're in the creative sector, this 2 months of lockdown or thereabout has been for a lot of young people who are really, really creative, have made some money from just working from their rooms, and so this is the time probably for those category of people to nicely resign and start their own thing and make more money for themselves. And there are a lot of young people in Lagos who have actually capitalized on this opportunity and are doing well for themselves right now without having to go to the office. So, beautiful opportunities, maybe for companies to create co-working spaces, for instance, and minimize cost of paying rent to a Lagos tenant. To a Lagos landlord who just wants to see. So it is going to. For me, this has been, for humanity on the whole, this has been very, especially because we are losing people. People are dying and everything. But like they say, in every crisis, there's always an opportunity. And for me, I see a lot of opportunities for creative.
I love it. And but then there's always that there's always that fear for people, creatives, branching out. I feel it's usually just safer for creatives to do their thing on the side and also have a job as well, which is secure. I don't know, because I feel like in the media, which is a sector I play in, there's somewhat of that flexibility that allows you to start out your own thing and also still be at a particular organization and still put in work to get the goals of that particular company executed. But what does this mean to a lot of media entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs generally? Let's not just limit it to media. What does this mean to a lot of entrepreneurs moving forward? Would there be that fear that, oh, these people might go out? Because I feel that's one of the things that company leads are scared of. That's why they're telling their staff members to come to work, because I need to see you. Not that you tell me that you're working from home and then you're applying to another place. I don't know. So what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, if you're an employer of labor, probably this is also a good time to be, if you were very hard on your staff, probably this is a very good time to be nice to them and relax some of those rules, that colonial era mentality that means that if you are paying someone a salary, you have to walk up to their and physically yell at them because you think that is the way to get results. Some of those things are not necessary. I mean, they are totally outdated. I want to believe that there are a lot of young people, especially in Lagos, who hate traffic so much that when you tell them to sit down at home and do the work instead, they're going to jump at it and they're going to give you 100%. So why don't you give those kind of people a chance and see where that gets you? And I don't think that if you're happy in a job and if your boss is nice to you, you want to dump the organization and say, I've gotten someone else. I think this is let's look at it from both ways. Be nice to your employees if you're an employer of labor or a boss, and employees are going to give you the best in terms of output and make sure they adhere to their KPI. So win-win for Lagos and for a lot of cities across the world where traffic is a huge problem.
Fantastic. So let's talk about one of the things that the culture intelligence report also talks about. So we saw last week some pastors pushing back on the lockdown, talking about the lockdown. Certain places have been relaxed, but churches cannot open and all of that. So what are your thoughts about that? Do you think that they have a base for argument because certain sectors are opened, or what do you think would be the future when you think about church and religious institutions?
I've been a bit disappointed, I'm not going to lie, about the utterances of some churches, some pastors of mega churches, at a time like this when the kind of messages you should be pushing out and the kind of communication you should be passing to the public should be one that inspires, should be one that suits the nerves, and not something that tries to stir up hate, acrimony, and tries to stir up strife among the population. The Holy Spirit is not affected by physical and social distancing. Now is not the time to talk about congregational worship. What we should be doing, which is what the Latter Rain Assembly led by Tunde Bakare has done, is donate your churches as centers, because happier to come to church. So this is not a time for pastors to be saying, oh wow, why are markets open and churches are closed? For goodness sake, you shouldn't compare both, because people need to eat and markets are essential places. You need people to eat to even be able to come to church. So right now, and it's a bit shameful for me, because why are the imams of mosques not talking? Not just churches. Churches are not the only ones shut at this time. Mosques are still closed, schools are still closed, clubs are still closed, bars are still closed, pubs are still closed. Why are those ones not complaining? Why is it that the pastors, this is not an argument we should entertain. Let the churches bear with the rest of society, and instead donate their facilities as isolation centers, and encourage people to pray from home or join services online on Sundays, and we will all be good and to heaven at the end of the day. You don't have to be in a physical space to go to heaven.
I like how you mentioned we'll all go to heaven at the end of the day, which is the goal after all. So finally, let's talk about structure. Yes, what's the way forward? How can Nigerians better handle the pandemic, and how can we ensure that we survive post COVID-19?
Yes, I think we were hesitant in the beginning in terms of the presidency or the federal government not shutting down the airspace on time. We should have shut down the airspace the week we had the index patients. We should have shut down the airspace that week. We hesitated. We could drag, and we continued to let in people fly from coronavirus hotspots across the world, from the UK, from the US. And we even lost our chief of staff, who came from Germany at the time, because we didn't space on time. But I want to believe that we learned, and as soon as we shut the airspace, we began serious contact tracing, isolation. We increased the capacity of our treatment centers or isolation centers. There were guidelines in public. People were sensitized. People were told why it's necessary to use face masks, to use hand sanitizers, to wash their hands at every opportunity, to maintain physical distancing, to keep 2 meters apart. I think in terms of communication, in terms of the after effect of not shutting down the airspace on time, Nigeria has done pretty well, because right now there is no country. This is this virus that is not that you don't begin to see the symptoms until after 14 days of incubation. So it's difficult for not just Nigeria, for the rest of the world. But I want to, if you look at the numbers per capita, right now we have about, even though we are under testing, but right now from reported cases, we still have less than 5,000 cases for a country of an estimated population of 200 million, which is not so bad in certain areas. But Nigeria has done well in terms of sensitization, in terms of education, in terms of awareness campaigns, in terms of beefing up our isolation centers. Even though we don't have enough bed capacity at the moment, we can, yes, in terms of asking our local government chairmen or traditional rulers at the grassroots to sensitize people more. But it's not been, the governments at state level and at federal level have done their best in the circumstances. And I'll say kudos. And going forward, we can do a lot more. But this Nigeria has handled this commendably, in my opinion.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. To round this off, can we just quickly, because one of the things that the Culture Intelligence Report by the Red for Africa team said is some governors will become superstars. So quickly, a few days ago, I saw a post by the governor of Lagos State lamenting that a lot of people in Lagos have not been following the guidelines as regards the lockdown, the relaxation of the lockdown. So let's just quickly mention some governors and shout them out that are already becoming superstars with this pandemic, who are taking action and doing the work in their various states.
Okay. Oh, you want us to highlight the governors who are doing the work?
Yes, and what are your thoughts about some governors becoming superstars, which is one of the things that is highlighted as the future as one of the things that would happen post COVID-19, because a lot of people have seen the response in states like Lagos, and I feel like the top of the list would be Governor Jude Egbas.
I wasn't really surprised by Sanwo-Olu's response to this pandemic, because having interviewed him a couple of times and been at sessions where he's been present, I knew he wasn't he wasn't as dense as a lot of people thought he was before this pandemic. And I knew he is actually a very pragmatic person, so I wasn't exactly surprised. And I'm sure he rose to the occasion beautifully. I've been very impressed with his daily briefings, how communication is the kind of the fact that communication across all Lagos State social media channels are aligned.
You were saying?
So I've been a bit disappointed with the Kano State Governor Ganduje, because he had enough time to learn from Lagos, given that Kano has a lot in common with Lagos in terms of population, in terms of being the commercial hub of the north. I expected that Ganduje would have looked at Lagos while all of this was happening. While Lagos cases were being reported every day, Ganduje would have put in place some kind of processes to stop his state from becoming the next Lagos. But he went to sleep basically and was asking for 15 billion instead of making sure that he had everything covered, his isolation centers, contact tracing and all of that. He practically went to sleep. But started demolishing, some governors, apart from Lagos, some governors probably in the south have done well in terms of trying to contain the pandemic and making sure that their states do not become the next epicenter of this unfortunate pandemic. So shout out to Sanwo-Olu especially. I have to give it to him for how he's risen to the occasion, giving us daily updates. Those updates are very important because it allows everybody to plan. It allows everybody, business owners, to be able to make certain decisions, and it gives hope that the leader of a place or a space is coming to talk to you directly. I hope that someday President Muhammadu Buhari realizes that this is an opportunity missed. I can understand that he's not an orator and that he's camera shy, but at a time like this, you expect to see your president talking to you directly and giving you daily briefings. So hopefully someday his aides who think that it's not important will realize that they're making a big mistake by not allowing him to speak to the people directly. Even if he speaks, he does communicate in Hausa or some other language. It doesn't matter. Just speak to your people. Look at the camera and speak to your people. It's very important.